Ladies and gentlemen, it's a huge pleasure to be with you all once again. Coming to this university,
It started with what appeared to be a straightforward rearrangement, a minor adjustment, a little touch to the regal decor. But beyond the glossy walls of Clarence House, that one move sparked something much bigger, a conflagration that reverberated across the monarchy. The decision was not announced or explained. It did not need to be, because in royal houses, silence often conveys more than any official declaration. One morning, a beloved photograph of Princess Charlotte vanished off the wall. There's no warning, no ceremony, no replacement. Only an empty area remains where the young princess's joyful face had stood. At first, no one dared to discuss it directly, but within hours, the rumors began. This was clear to staff, aides, and others who had spent years studying the language of palace optics. The removal of the painting was not solely about art, decor, or a redesign attempt. It was a message. Everyone felt it. Some claimed it was Camilla's decision. Other people were aware of this. She allegedly directed royal servants to remove Charlotte's photograph from a prominent hallway that guests, dignitaries, and senior royals walked every day. And while she may have believed it was just another subtle aesthetic tweak, what happened next was anything but. Prince William, who had been silent during other internal storms, refused to let this one pass, because to him, it was more than just a frame on a wall. It was his daughter, his legacy, his line in the sand. And this time, he would not let history repeat itself. At first glance, it appeared to be a typical morning. Sunlight poured through Clarence House's windows, throwing gentle gold across the east wing. The mansion was calm, operating at its regular regal pace, silver polished, draperies changed, and flowers set just so. However, something seemed odd. A junior aide, on her customary rounds, paused near the great corridor, where photos of the royal children were carefully arranged. She blinked, then I looked again. One of them went missing. The place where Princess Charlotte's birthday photo used to hang is now gone. Only a small rectangular shadow remained on the wall. She said nothing at first. In royal service, noticing something and remarking on it are two distinct things. However, by mid-morning, word had spread through the quiet grapevine of palace workers. Nobody had been told why the portrait had been removed. There was no official memo sent out. Nonetheless, it was evident that this was more than just a cleaning rotation or periodic update, because George's image remained in its place, as did Louis's. Only Charlotte's had disappeared. The image, which had earlier added a lovely warmth to the corridor and was frequently complimented by tourists and adored by staff, was suddenly gone, erased with no trace. Outsiders may interpret it as a decorating decision. However, people who were familiar with royal life saw that this was not about interiors. It was all about the narrative. And the removal of Charlotte's image did not seem random. It felt purposeful. Princess Charlotte has captivated the world's attention when she first curtsied in public, not by fanfare or scandal, but with a gentle, natural grace that felt comfortable. Some claimed she carried her mother's warmth. Others recognized Diana in her attentive glance, confident attitude, and faint sparkle in her grin. The photograph that previously hung in Clarence House was more than just a beautiful depiction of a royal youngster. It was taken on Charlotte's 7th birthday, a moment Catherine had helped plan. Charlotte stood in a blue dress, her hair partly up, beaming with confidence beyond her years. That image had become popular among both workers and visitors. It was neither formal nor stiff. It was sincere. Placed alongside photographs of George and Louis, it offered a simple but strong story. This is the new generation. These are the children who will lead the monarchy forward. George is the heir, Louis, the charmer, and Charlotte, the steady, loving thread that connects the past and future. But what about removing her image? That wasn't simply removing a frame off the wall. It was erasing something important, something delicate. It had a deeper impact on William. He had grown up witnessing how Diana's image was controlled, denied, and altered to fit whatever narrative the crown required. He had seen love transform into strategy and presence become absence. Charlotte's image represented more than just tradition. It was a declaration that she belonged not just to the people, but also to the palace. Her disappearance was not subtle. That was a statement, and that statement was not ignored. It was not a public choice. It wasn't screamed across the room or documented in a formal record. It occurred over tea, discreetly, as most powerful events in the royal realm do. According to a source close to the family, the situation was nearly casual. Camilla sat with a senior staff member, swirled her tea, and looked across the corridor. She paused briefly. Then, with emotion so delicate it could have gone overlooked, she pointed to the wall. "That one," she allegedly stated. "The girl dressed in blue. It no longer matches the tone of the room." No name. No mention of Charlotte, simply a suggestion wrapped in beauty. However, within the palace gates, subtlety has its own language. The workers understood. Orders in royal homes are rarely issued as commands. They appear as preferences, observations, and courteous remarks. And such words carry weight, especially when they come from the Queen. The aides did not challenge it. Within hours, the portrait had been removed, carefully packaged, and transported away without explanation. There were no replacements. There is no reshuffle. Just an empty spot where Charlotte's photo had beamed the day before. Camilla suspected it was about aesthetics, tone, or a deeper pain she couldn't identify. Some said that she had always been concerned about Charlotte's growing fame, that the girl's posture and subtle magnetism reminded her too much of Diana. The memories of the Wales children seemed more like shadows than warmth. It made no difference whether the motive was jealousy, control, or simply detachment. What mattered was that a child was discreetly eliminated. And for a family burdened by the cost of quiet, that single deed would speak louder than any speech. For days, no one dared to discuss the missing portrait aloud. The absence remained throughout the halls like a silent draft, noticed, felt, but never identified, until one woman, tired of quiet, let the truth out. Margaret Haynes, a longtime housekeeper, was recognized not only for her discretion, but also for her undying dedication to Princess Catherine. She had witnessed births, burials, state visits, and scandals. She knew when to keep her head down. Something was different this time, though. Margaret had been in the East Hall the morning the portrait vanished. She observed the aides carrying it out, wrapped in felt and gloved hands, treating it as if it were glass. She did not speak. She didn't ask any questions, but she felt it like a stone in her stomach. Later that week, during a regular phone contact with a former Kensington Palace worker, she unintentionally blurted it out, just a simple statement tossed into the conversation. They took Charlotte's portrait down. The quiet on the other end of the telephone conveyed everything. Then came the response. Who ordered it? Margaret didn't respond. She did not need to. The rumor was debunked within hours. Trusted employees whispered behind closed doors, tracing the removal back to a single source. The mood in Kensington turned from curiosity to concern. This was more than simply a quiet shuffle of furniture. This was a choice that affected the Wales family personally, and those who had vowed to defend them could no longer remain silent. It was a crisp evening at Kensington Palace when William learned the truth, not from the press or formal reports, but from a folded note left on his desk. It was written by hand, with crisp, steady lettering that was obviously Margaret's. Charlotte's image was removed from Clarence House, ordered by the Queen Consort. No replacement, no explanation. He read it once, then again. Then a third time, but slower. The room surrounding him became quiet. His stance remained controlled, but those closest to him had seen this look before. Eyes narrowed, jaw clenched, and breath sucked through his nostrils quietly. For William, this was not palace politics. It was not an image swap or a gallery shuffle. It was personal. It was about his daughter. Charlotte was not merely a royal child. She was a representation of everything the monarchy could be. Soft, brilliant, and resilient, she posed significant questions. She stood tall among her brothers, and she carried the legacy of a woman the palace had long wanted to forget. Another woman had attempted to make Charlotte invisible. William recognized the pattern. He had lived it. He'd seen it play out in headlines and corridors. Diana's face, once adored, gradually faded from official locations. Her account was recast, softened, and edited to match the crown's narrative. He would not let this happen to his daughter. Without saying anything, he strolled to the fireplace and glanced at the paintings hung above it. George, Louis, and Charlotte. He moved her frame slightly, a modest gesture full of significance. Then he called his private secretary. "I want a record," he explained. every motion, each instruction, every name associated with this decision. The prince had been provoked, and this time he would not be silent. Clarence House had never felt so still. There were no cameras, no press vans. There is no rush of aides announcing arrivals, just a quiet hum of anxiety behind each corridor, as if the mansion was bracing for something. When Prince William walked through the VIP gate alone, the personnel hardly moved. They didn't need to know this wasn't a routine visit. His steps were measured. His look is unreadable, but the air around him felt different, denser. Camilla sat in the white drawing room, reviewing charity briefings with a half-empty cup of tea beside her. She looked up as the footman came, carrying a whispered message. "The Prince of Wales is here, unannounced." She rose with the poise of a woman who had trained to carry every room she entered. But today she refused. William did not sit. He did not remove his coat. He went in, locked eyes with her, and asked a single question. Why was Charlotte's portrait removed? The words were heavy. There is no anger. There are no theatrics. Simply a voice too solid to ignore. Camilla blinked, paused. Then he responded with trained calm. The space was being updated. Just a minor adjustment. William did not flinch. George and Louis are still there. Only Charlotte was removed. Camilla's fingers tightened around her papers. It was not intended to insult. It was an issue of visual balance. William stepped forward, his voice low but determined. She is not a decoration. She is a child. The words hung there, purposeful and scathing. Camilla attempted to reorganize. It wasn't personal. Then what was it? William cut in. Public perception or personal resentment? Because this family does not arrange children like furniture. The stillness that ensued was louder than any debate. William turned to depart, pausing just once. Restore the portrait, publicly, or I will, and I will not stop there. Back at Adelaide Cottage, the atmosphere was changed. There was no conflict, no outburst, and no strategy, only quietness. Catherine had spent the afternoon with the youngsters, ensuring that routines were followed and spirits were high. Charlotte chuckled as she put flowers in a teacup on the kitchen table, completely unconscious of the firestorm raging just a few miles away. Catherine was resolved to preserve things as they were, for the time being. When William returned home, his countenance revealed all. He didn't have to say anything. She rose up from the garden bench and met his gaze. She admitted it? She asked softly. He nodded once. She described it as a design choice. I told her precisely what it was. Catherine inhaled softly and pressed her lips together. She is a child, William. Our child. She examines the walls for parts of herself, and now a piece is missing. He reached out and wrapped his fingers around hers. He vowed, it will be back soon. But this time, it's not hidden. Not forgotten. After the kids had gone to bed, Catherine unlocked a drawer in her study. She pulled out a printed copy of the portrait, the one taken on Charlotte's birthday, her eyes shining, her posture proud. Catherine turned it over and grabbed a pen. On the back, she only scribbled one sentence, "You are never invisible." She placed the frame near the fireplace so Charlotte would see it in the morning. Not in a palace, in the home, where love does not require permission to hang on the wall. The portrait did not return with fanfare. There was no announcement. There is no press release, but everyone noticed. On a gray Thursday morning, a royal art conservator entered Clarence House via a side entry, flanked by 2 senior aides, not interns or young curators. That alone indicated that this was no normal modification. The painting of Princess Charlotte was carried in on delicate linen and carefully unwrapped in the grand staircase, the most obvious passage in the house, not hidden away in a side hall, not softly returned to its former location. This time it went somewhere more noticeable. It was the same photograph in blue clothing, but the portrait was now housed in a new gilded frame. At the bottom, a brass plaque had been attached. It reads, Her Royal Highness Princess Charlotte of Wales, Grace and Spirit, Legacy and Motion. The message was undeniably clear. This was no longer only about the missing photo. It was about making it apparent that Charlotte belonged, not just to the family, but to its future. Sources close to Clarence House revealed that the reinstallation was ordered directly by Prince William, following an internal clarification. Camilla walked past the stairwell later that day. Staff stated that she paused briefly. She did not speak, but she lingered. Her look is unreadable. The portrait was back, but this time it shouted louder than before. Because the most impactful corrections in the royal world do not include speeches. They are created with frames. For William, it was never about the photograph. It was about what the portrait represented, what it protected, what it represented. It was about preventing a familiar stillness from returning, the kind that had previously eliminated his mother from the palace walls. From the